Monali, your Teams is visible.
My Teams is visible. Yeah, just a second. This is sharing something else. Yeah, this is always the problem. Is it working? Maybe not. Can you see my slides, Darshali? I cannot hear you.
Hello, ma'am. Pratibha ma'am is here as well. Good morning,
We
ma'am.
can see your slides, Monali. Right.
Okay,
Please
great.
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about my journey from a small girl under the watchful eyes of my parents to where I am today, with STEM as the driving force. So I grew up as a small. I grew up as a kid who loves playing outdoors. I grew up in a small town which is in the far east of the country, in Imphal Valley. As a kid, I loved maths. It was my favorite subject, and I used to participate in many state level competitions then. And because of that, I got a lot of attention from NGOs, just like Kalpana, similar, who works for nurturing students. So those NGOs really guided me and to get the best out of me. Okay. I cannot see my own slides. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, we stopped seeing your slides. So
I do not know what happened.
yeah, while you're pulling it up, I just want to check if Pratibha ma'am is here. I admitted ma'am into the meeting. Ma'am, are you here? Bharti, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but ma'am is not here, I think. Ma'am is here as guest. She's on mute. I can see her.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, please, Monali, go ahead. I can see your slides again.
Okay, perfect. I do not know what happened then.
It's okay. Perfectly fine.
Okay. So when I was in my school, in my high school, I participated in a lot of state level competitions, and that's when NGOs took interest in me, and they really guided me to get the best out of me then. And after that, like in my 10th board exam, actually I did quite well, and I was I came sixth ranked in the state board exams. But the thing was that, when you're doing well, people expect a lot out of you. They always expect higher and higher from you. But because of that, when even though like I was in the top 10, but still I really felt like a failure then. It was like really disappointing for me. I think I struggled with the disappointment for quite some time, and I just couldn't let go of it. It was in the beginning of my 12th standard. Actually, I had fallen ill, and because of that, I got a break from studies, and that kind of gave me helped to gain some new perspective. I would say that it was really a blessing in disguise because I was forced to actually take break from my studies. So during that time, I actually learned that I should just let go of others' expectations, and I should not be burdened by what other expects out of me. So that was one very important lesson for me, and it has stayed with me until today. Why do I hear myself?
I don't know. Let me see.
Somebody's mic is on. Vijay, please switch off your mic if it is you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Till my high school, chemistry was not my favorite subject. Actually, it was the least favorite subject among all the science. But that changed when I went to higher secondary school and when I really started doing chemistry experiments in the lab. When, for example, when we're doing salt analysis or during the titration, when you actually see reactions happening and then the colors of the solution changing, you really know what is happening. And finally, I was able to relate to what chemistry is. And then my interest really grew in chemistry. And after that, I know what I'm doing now. Chemistry became one of my favorite subjects, and in my 12th board exams, I did really great, and I was the topper of the state in the science stream, and that helped to secure a scholarship from Ambedkar Foundation. And this was really helpful for me because it partially funded my bachelor studies in Delhi. So I went to St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and I joined the chemistry department there. And during my college, I also got the DST Inspire Fellowship, and that again helped to cover the rest of the expenses for my studies. Now, during the time of my college, it was, for me, honestly speaking, the journey to Delhi was not an easy one because it was a big transition from a very small town to a very big city. It was an entirely different world, for a 17-year-old. It was different people, different language, different food habits, different way of living. It was totally different. And I would say that it was kind of a cultural shock. And I spent almost my entire first year trying to adapt to the new environment. But when I look back, that was a very important experience because I learned how to adapt. It really also prepared me for the future events. Overall, during my college time, it really taught me how to stand on my own feet, how to be independent, and above all, the most important learning that I had in my college was to have a voice of my own. During college, I also when I was in college, the career that I had in my mind was to join civil services, but destiny had something else in mind for me. So I ended up applying for a project-oriented chemical education program in JNCSR, and I also got selected for it. So this project-oriented chemical education program is a program initiative of Professor C.N.R. Rao. And through this program, students are given exposure to research for 3 consecutive summers. And through this program, I learned how research is actually done in the laboratories, and I developed interest in material chemistry. So after that, when I finished my bachelor's, I decided to pursue integrated master's PhD in JNCSR. Although now, when I look back, I think it was a very big commitment that I made because it takes 7 years to complete integrated master's PhD. And I feel like I should have gone slow, step by step, like first master's and then PhD later, because the master thesis that I did was on investigation of metal organic framework nanosheets, and investigating chromium oxides, which are doped with nitrogen and fluorine. So basically replacing the oxygen in chromium oxide with nitrogen and fluorine, and then investigating how the property changes. As the title suggests, it was a very fundamental research, and that's when I realized that, like, I don't know why I was doing that research. I do not know why I'm investigating what I was investigating. I do not know what the purpose of my research was. And basically, I couldn't see the bigger picture. And that's when I lost really interest in research. I think I just didn't have the motivation anymore to do those kind of research. So, but on the other hand, as a part of one of my coursework, I had the opportunity to give a seminar on self-healing polymers. So these are polymers that can heal by itself. So it's something that you can immediately see what is happening, and you can relate this technology to some kind of application. For example, self-repairing fabrics or self-repairing paints or those kind of stuff. So you can directly relate to it. So these were the kind of research that I was looking for and I'm interested in. And for that reason, I decided both solids and liquids. And the liquid crystals, I can tell you that these are the materials which are present in the liquid crystal displays, LCD screens that you have all around you, in the television or in the computer. So these liquid crystals, they can exist in many different phases, and one of the phase is cholesteric liquid crystalline materials. So cholesteric liquid crystalline materials have a color of its own, and it is a kind of photonic material. So photonic material are those material which are present in, for example, in the peacock feathers, in the morpho butterflies, or in chameleons. Like here you can see in this video that, because of the photonic crystals, chameleons are able to change its color when it wants. So I work on this kind of materials, and I developed many different technology based on these materials that can change color. So one of them was photonic papers where you can write on it permanently, or the other one where you can write it, erase it, and then rewrite it again. And then the other work was photonic material where the patterns are camouflaged, it is hidden. And then with some trigger, you can reveal what the patterns which has been hidden can be revealed. Then I also worked on technology which can be used for medical diagnosis. And I also worked on materials which can be used for food packaging, where it can act as a label telling that whether the food has been spoiled or not. So this kind of research that I did during my PhD, and one of the one for the food packaging level also actually led to a spin-off. But what I learned most during the time of my PhD was that I could work efficiently, do between 9 to 6, and then I can that is actually polymers. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I learned during my PhD, that I can also spend time outside work, and there is actually life that exists outside the work, and I should not be defined by only the work that we do in the laboratory. So I graduated with a doctor title in 2018, and I was really happy to have my family by my side. And after my PhD, it was an obvious choice for me that I would go for an industrial R&D. To make it much more efficient and to look for more sustainable solutions. So yeah, that's my story, and yeah, I mean, where I am today, I have to say that like it is because of the support and the trust that I've got from my family and from my friends, and that I would like to end my talk saying that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's a quote from Max Planck, and this quote, this lines really helped me to see the positive side of situations, to get the positive, only see the positive and not the negative, even though sometimes the situation makes you feel down, but these lines make me see the positive side of it. So with this, I would like to say thank you.
She served as a principal. 2011. Recently, she has conferred the Women Entrepreneur Mentor Award by Delhi Management Association and MDG's MSME Women of the Year Award on the International Women's Day in 2019. In her academic career, she has done a PhD in theoretical chemical physics in 1980 from the University of Delhi, and later joined Miranda House, where she led to innovation and research in science education at tertiary level. In 2002, Dr. Jolly appointed as the principal at Acharya Narendra Dev College, and later in 2005, she moved back to her alma mater, Miranda House, as a principal. Dr. Jolly has several pioneering research projects to her credit that have led to pedagogical innovation and development of educational resource materials, contributed towards capacity building and research-based physics education. Her multifaceted work led to establishment of D.S. Kothari Center for Research and Innovation in Science Education at Miranda House. She is passionate about engendering change, early adoption of new technologies, faculty development, capacity building of women in science and leadership roles, entrepreneurial activities, mentoring diverse student populations, creating technology-enhanced active teaching learning environment, and promoting project-based learning. So thank you, Dr. Jolly. I'm actually privileged to welcome you here on Kalpana 1.0 as our speaker who can talk about and reflect upon what are the careers and how girls can go ahead in their careers. So I think all girls will be able to reflect further on their career plan now and come up with interesting career choices after listening to your talk. Over to you, Dr. Jolly. Ma'am, your microphone is mute.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Thank you. I'm really sorry that you had to read out all that. That was sent only for somebody who was doing an interview in a story. And so I think we should not have subjected the girls to what probably in any case I'm going to be speaking about, and it is not necessary. I would really love to chat, but Darshana said I should do a few PowerPoint slides. Now, if they do go through, because somehow I've been having a technology challenge, I had to reboot my system, and then it went on to install the latest, updates. And there are more because the earlier link didn't work. So first, my big apologies, and also to all the wonderful girls who are here, and also hello to Dr. Manali. I really enjoyed your talk. It was wonderful and very, very focused. But I'm going to tell a story, and it will be non-linear because it's a very, very non-linear world, and it is for you to connect the dots. And one size never fits all. And somehow we have in our system started teaching all those who come into our classrooms, whether they be from science stream or technology, engineering stream, where those are, of course, more professional, but we teach them, and so each one of them is going to go into research, and that all science and technology careers mean that you have to do the frontiers, blue sky research, or really great research, and you have to set yourself those targets, and that doesn't happen. And so that's why a large number of people do fall back to the wayside. But science is so much more than that. Science is so much more than that. So let me therefore, for this story, I have about 15 minutes. Maybe I'll take a little about that and share with you a few slides. And you are already aware of it. But try to create your own story within that framework. And that is what is much more important, and my story has also been one of not being able to do what I really wanted to do, but finding a mission in teaching, working with students, but not remaining bound to one particular institutional job and moving around. And that is the perspective today I want to share with you. And let us see if you can see my slides. Can you?
AI is uploading, ma'am. It will be visible soon.
Yeah. So I want to share my entire screen.
Okay, we are seeing your, I think we are seeing your Teams page right now. Yes, now we can see your slides.
Okay. Are you there with me, everybody? Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am, there.
All right. So when I was asked that you should reimagine your careers, but I think you need to reimagine your world. And career is just a part of that world. So when you build a career, you really need to decide what is the world in which you want to live. So essentially, today, all the time we are saying it's a brave new world. It's always been a brave new world. It is defined certainly by the changing aspirations of our governments, the people, and women. How do we, what aspirations do we bring into our lives and into society? And within that, the social landscape has been changing really rapidly. Today, exponential change in disruptive technologies has taken everything over, and that has led to change in the workplace. We have to find our own jobs often, and it's an entrepreneurial ecosystem more than anything. And so you've got to prepare for skills for the future of work, because hardly anyone is going to stay in the same job for a lifetime. And if you do, probably you'll have to keep upskilling and reskilling yourself, which is almost like redefining your world, your work, and everything. So within that, you have to be able to understand that the educational landscape also has to have very rapid changes. And probably if I have to summarize, then it is about active learning, taking charge of your own learning, and community engagement, making it contextualized and situated in the context of the real world. And that said, let me simply say, is the women's century. It is for us to bridge the generation gap rather than lament that there exists a generation gap, and therefore it is for us to break the stereotypes. So it has to be the story of each of us. Each of us has to be brave. Each of us has to be ready to go into the new world. And changes have been happening over the last, let's say, 2 decades, 20-odd years. The way we interact with each other, the way we learn, the way we share, the skills and the instruments that we bring to our workplace and even our daily lives have changed completely. So we are really yearning to be a knowledge-based society, even in the remotest areas of our own country. And that is impacting us. And in these changing times and changing goals, so much has changed. We have moved to be completely digitalized. We talk of green energies. We talk of Make in India. We are so deeply connected that today, the diffusion of smartphones in rural India has overtaken that in the urban field. And you're now talking of 5G connectivity and moving above all that, and electrical cars and the kind of research that Monali spoke about. So we are actually we have for some time even been talking of a smart future. I won't say smart cities, but certainly a smart future. And that means that every country has to invest in human and social capital. It has to strengthen its traditional infrastructure, its heritage, its native ways of knowing and doing. But at the same time, it has to overlay a modern infrastructure. And that's the only thing that's going to lead to sustainable economic development and give high quality of life. And in all that, obviously, natural resources are very, very important. And no government can today do anything on its own. It has to be participatory action and community engagement. Therefore, each one of us, at whatever age we are responsible for our future and the lives of our people. So that's the world that we're talking about. But that said, as we speak of, we dream of smart cities, we dream of going to Mars and inhabiting it, and so on and so forth. There are many global grand challenges that need to be overcome. We do know that any time floods and droughts, and then you have tsunamis, and you have we are not disaster resilient as a country. Energy, environment, food for all, better governance systems, healthcare, education for all. prosperity, shelter space, these are the challenges that we are facing. Therefore, any career that you envisage or cannot be devoid of this deep, sensitive understanding of what is the world in which either we live or most of the population lives. And considering that India is 1/7 of the population of the world, and within that, many of our people face these challenges, so you know that we have a huge responsibility on how we, the educated, and especially those in S&T, promote our own careers and what are the problems that we work on. For a long time, we've been talking of living on the climate change curve, which is an exponential, and therefore we've also been talking immensely about reaching those SDGs by 2030. You know, I have these in a very big way on a wall in my college, and run up and say, "Ma'am, I'm going to devote my life to working for, let us say, you know, goal number 1, maybe, elimination of poverty." And these could be science students. So how would you marry your expertise with, a mission that you set for yourself in life, or maybe a mission that may be thrust on you because you are living in that kind of a world? So, and today, you know, exponential is what we are talking about. We are living on the exponential pandemic curve. So understanding these graphical representations of data has now become so commonplace because it's in our face in the newspapers and social media and all. And as a science student, whether you come from life sciences or whatever discipline, it is so important to learn data, interpretation, evidence-based understanding of science, and to be able to, work with numbers, model them, and to understand what is the model. How do we decide whether the pandemic is going to go away or it is going to remain here with us? And you can see on the grand challenges, today we need to certainly add the migrant workers. And I thought, happy to Sarah is what I'm going to say to you when I come to this slide. So as we celebrate our festivals, we cannot, be devoid of sensitivity to the world that we are living in today. And so remember, I promised you it's going to be a non-linear story, and I'm going to place the dots. And for each one of you, it is, you have to join them as you decide suits you best and create a picture on that canvas that will help you to create your own world, your own career. And we can see obviously that coronavirus has pushed science and technology to the forefront. It has even common public today, so there's a vaccine coming, and admiring the kind of research that is emerging from our own ecosystem. So everybody is aboard here, but more so those who are working in the labs or in healthcare or on the front lines and on. And it is so important to be adaptive and agile. And I'd like to mention two women, Renu Saru, Secretary of DBT, and Soumya Swaminathan from WHO. And I urge that you look at their career paths, you look at how they came to be in these the frontline leading leadership positions. And Renu Saru obviously is a great manager. So how did she marry both science and these kind of skills? And Soumya Swaminathan, as a clinical practitioner, is also now today, she was also heading ICMR when she moved to WHO. So what is the player that allows you to reach these positions? Two traits that remain very important are that you're adaptive, you're agile, and you take opportunities when they come to you, and you work hard to responsibly discharge your duties. So as you know that today everybody is working together, and especially if you look at how women have been delivering under very difficult circumstances, critical innovations. For example, Minal Bhosle from My Lab's Discovery Solutions, Pune, she was able to create the first Indian kit for evaluation, for testing of corona. And it's an incredible innovation because you get results of 100% accuracy, hardly 1,200 rupees in about 2.5 hours. And she worked with a team of 9 in her team of 10. And next day, after delivering this kit, she delivered her baby. So this was the time to work and develop a test for the country, is what she had to say, and it's important. So let me simply say that if you think that you're going to follow a linear path, as most of us are forced or tend to do because of societal reasons. It is that we complete our grade 12, and then, if you've been an accelerated student, you choose science, whether you like it or not, and then you move or you go for medicine or engineering, and you linearly, without any break to think of what you really like, where your passion is, move on to finishing your studies, establishing a career, establishing a family, and then, just staying in those circumstances and so on. And sometimes, of course, making critical choices that can be very disruptive, because family can be very disruptive at times. But we're living in a time where technology itself is changing exponentially. So not only we have to understand disruption and these exponential changes happening all around us, we also have to be able to negotiate it rather well. And although you have all those terms, but I want today to bring them together, to string to it a story so that you understand what do we mean by disruption, what do we mean by exponential technologies, and those technologies that are driving our world and will define our future in the next several decades till another model of let us say, development in science and technology takes over. So these are the 6 Ds of the exponential technology transformations that have been with us for the last 2-3 decades. And we have not even realized, because we have continued with our old systems and old ways. You know that our whole cameras, chemical films got replaced by digital. Kodak did not believe it would work, and it went bankrupt. And so in the beginning, all technologies are slow to take off. They're very disruptive. But suddenly, because of the properties of the exponential curve, the change becomes very, very fast. And that causes disruption. It's accelerated. And we have seen it in our own lives. Because suddenly, everything is digital. We'll probably have no currency notes left. We will be demonetized. Everything has got dematerialized. If you look at whether you have any photos, no. They're all in the cloud. They are all today, digital devices are so wonderful. The laptop actually has no data. All my data is in the cloud. So everything is dematerialized, including how we do business. And it has become highly democratized, and that's really, really good for women, because from anywhere you can set up your own work and you can access immense amount of data and knowledge at the click of a mouse, and you can witness this is exactly what's happening. It's, because it's brief, I'm going to very quickly flash a couple of slides and then we'll move on. But it's important to see what I mean by demonetization. For a summary, all data, be it pixels or be it other things, are now removed from transaction. They're somewhere in the cloud. The technology itself has disappeared. We're merely using it. It's not in our face. And we do not have to learn or go to a college to learn how to use a smartphone or our laptops or how to do things. Still learning and social learning is teaching us that. And everything is cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And that is making a difference. So AI, big data, deep learning, machine learning are going to make a huge difference in our lives. It doesn't matter what course or degree program you came from, the future is going to belong to these technologies, and know that you're already being impacted by them. Because if you go to a mall and you happen to look at a dress that you like, you'll be very surprised if next day in your email you start getting, more advertisements for that. Or if you just put a word like Europe and next day you start getting all the hotels in Europe. So somewhere you are being mapped. Your preferences are being mapped. And all this is happening. And you can leverage this to build very, very interesting careers. I know of somebody from TCS, a computer science engineer, who quit her job then to set up her own enterprise, and which is leveraging AI in let us say exactly the kind of examples I gave you. You can buy a dress without going to a mall and so on. So this is technology in its deepest form. It is machine learning and it is artificial intelligence. So now, in this kind of a disruptive world where technologies are really changing, many jobs are going to be at risk. Those jobs that are highly automatable, that is, human being can be replaced, are close to more 14%. And those that can be radically transformed are going to be close to 32%. And this data is really, it will change very fast. Don't really look at the figures, but see that it's a new culture. New technologies have opened new markets and new jobs. So even in COVID times, I can sit at home and get every service delivered to my doorstep and so on. You just look at e-commerce, the way it has kept us alive. Look at the people who are coming and delivering that, and people who may be managing that and are managing Ola, Uber, and Oyo rooms. It's all technology. That is at the highest level the disruptive technology. And those who are coming to us are freelance workers. They may be highly qualified. This is the gig economy that is now taken over. And what is deeply changing is how we work. How to work has changed more than the work itself. And pandemic has shown this to us in a very big way. Just look at us. I'm talking to you, and you're all over the geographies, and we're connected. So there is also autonomy. Anyone can do what they want to do today, join different groups, join different platforms, and so on. You can schedule at any time. It can be geographically located anywhere. So this immense flexibility is defining anyone, anytime, anywhere democratization. And the virtual workforce is predicted to be about 63%. You can now design both your learning and work experience, but what skills would you need to do that? You have to be self-monitoring, self-regulating, disciplined. You have to always be very resilient, adaptive, and agile. You have to see where an opportunity lies. And in that, you have to reimagine your work-life structure, your lifestyle choices, your work choices, and manage both together. It may become a 365 into 24-hour structure till we learn to value leisure also in a more disciplined way, which I think is not happening at this moment, and that may be because of the strange times that we are in. So how we will work will change. And this is true not just of those of us in science and technology, but just anyone, anywhere, and all disciplines, working or not working. But those of us in the science stream who understand this rather well and move on. So you need to engender skills for this changing workplace. The change 4.0 is upon you. And education, from where you are going to emerge, was always the hardest sector to reform. But today it is an accelerated reboot. We are witnessing this reboot. So make the most of this rebooted times. And your teachers are not going to be helping you, your institutions, as much as you yourself will create your learning and work experiences and reboot your own world so that it can take care of you in volatile times to come. And that's important. So as you make choices about what, when, where, and how that I've been talking about, not just in virtual learning, but you'll have to start integrating virtual work environments and develop skills for that. That's important. Therefore, whatever be your degree program, you have to create a parallel personal portfolio because technologies are getting outdated rather fast. The curriculum has got outdated rather fast. NEP hopes to address it, but it may be several years before it is even put on ground. What you need to build is micro-credentials. It's no longer going to be enough if you have one degree and one type of skill that you want. You need to have what I call as micro-credentials, mini qualifications, nano degrees, and build a very adaptive portfolio that is tuned to your own desires, your passion, your plans for your career, and so on and so forth. In doing this, you will discover what you like, what you don't like. So early specialization is never helpful. But these kind of credentials, micro-credentials, will allow you to see what you have as a passion for my entire lifetime, or at least for the next few years. Because nobody, as I said, will be lucky enough, few will be, to stay in one kind of a thing. So, as I said, the social relevance is going to be very important, because while we will be doing blue sky research in the frontiers, we will have to address what we are calling as our social responsibility for the billions who have not got today the benefits of technology and science. So we have to put our knowledge to work. So, I mean, even if you're working on, let's say, liquid crystals and you're developing new devices, how do we make it cheaper, smaller? So, electrical cars were spoken of, and that is going to be the future of transportation. So, understand what is transportation. How can you design, address the grand challenge of so much of traffic on the roads and so on, but further understand what batteries are all about, because we wear so many sensors. So sensors are twinned with the kind of devices we have. And they have to have longer lasting battery and lighter and lighter and lighter. And you may have later devices that are embedded in your body, and they would need different kinds of, powering systems. So these are new areas of research that are coming up in a very, very big way, and it is expected of nations and governments expect that institutions will provide such competence that our students and young people like you will be able to address these problems. So let me say the disruptive changes in higher education and work ecosystem with new technologies and their new pedagogies, new ways of learning and new modes of learning. Many of them are online, and whether they be MOOCs or the micro courses and the open courses I'm talking about, this democratization of data and analytical tools. At the same time, there's a new framework for accountability as you take charge of your own life and you develop new partnership and new business models, which may have no office building. Your home is your office, or you may be sitting in a garden and working, and that is your office. Sometimes you'll be pushed to do that, sometimes you'll be pulled to do it, but there's no escaping from it. So this is where the world is, and India is assisting the startup ecosystem in a very, very big way. So whether you go into R&D in organized institutional labs or corporate labs or industrial labs, or you set up your own, the world is ready for it. And this is most important. And if you look at it at the moment, only 9% of the startup founders happen to be women, but 72% are less than 35 years. So all of you who are going out need to be open to the idea that you can put your education to entrepreneurial use and you can come up with it. So I'm going to please bear with me. I'm going to run through some slides rather quickly in the sense that you'll see me clicking but not stopping at them. Okay. So let me say, and I spoke of cloud computing. So it's not going to be difficult for you to have startups because you don't need huge teams of software engineers and all. Most of these things are going to be available as a service. And you can get a group of people together and you can, without a big office, without brick and mortar buildings, without huge teams, but on the power of an idea and power of a search, set up a big organization. Just look at how Darshana has set up her own, let us say, a voluntary enterprise. She has people coming in from all over the world to help her as mentors, and just either an email or a phone call away, and a huge organizational setup is being set up. It's diffused in geography and it is diffused in physical space. It is the power of the idea. And that is what our education fails to give us. So it's important. And our country is nurturing this startup story. So please learn about design thinking, which will help you to unleash innovation. And you need to understand and explore different ways of working and put them, materialize them. So it's important that you should be able to ideate, create prototypes, test them, and implement them. And all this should happen through project work when you are still a student. So your internships, cognitive apprenticeships, and placements are going to be very important. Maybe taking a year off in between your study if you're not very well comfortable about what you want to pursue will help you if you use that time for internship or apprenticeship, or just self-learning in building your micro-credentials and skilling in an appropriate way. So let me say today the world belongs to moonshot thinking. And this is a term that naturally comes to mind when you look at it on, Tesla and the kind of work they have done. So you have to be able to find radical solutions to huge problems, working in teams perhaps, and nothing is beyond your capability. Anything is possible. And you can see that just yesterday I got this news that 2023 Young Scientist Challenge was won by an NRA Indian American, Anika Chabarulu, 14 years, who has, using in silico methodology, discovered the molecule that can selectively bind to SARS-CoV and won $25,000 in US. And she's also developing dancer, very passionate about what she does. And she was actually doing this project with influenza virus and then extrapolated it to COVID. And it's so important. So you also have very young people now coding. So these are your competition. And I'm not telling you, but I'm telling you the world today is at younger and younger age mastering the disruptive technologies. That means that age is no bar. People are capable of doing it, but our educational system does not give them that opportunity. And in a play-based system, able to do this. For example, Samira Mehta began coding at 6 years, and she's designed a board game that teaches other people to learn to code in AI, coding in AI. And she is now the Generation Equality Champion for UN, and it's in a game. So gamification of learning is going to happen. You already see these ads coming on TV about very young mobile app developers. They could just be about 8 years or 6 years old. So it's not beyond a capacity, but not all of us will have those opportunities. So that is important. So please remember that there's a lot to do for us. Why there's so much to do? You don't have to only look at the traditional science subjects. That is because the world has been designed by men and not for women. The world is not designed for women. You can see that from many examples. For example, NASA wanted an all-woman team to do spacewalk. But at the last moment, they found there weren't enough spacesuits because spacesuits are designed for men. And therefore, one woman had to be replaced by a man. And, whether you have seat belts or you have air cushions in cars or you have pianos or you have diagnosis for heart attacks or blood testing or even Google testing, it's all done on male samples and all. And therefore, what happens is that there are so many problems that 50% of us can address to create a world that is for both men and women. So you will find, according to your own interest, whether you want to work in an NGO, you want to work in the best possible Nobel Prize winning research labs, every problem is relevant. It has a meaning. And it's very important for women to start coming into designing a women's world because it's so missing in our space, even though we have all the science and technology, even though we have been contributing. So I want to see sciences as women. And as I've said, you are born entrepreneurs. You just look at the Manipur, Manani would notice the metal market, which is 500-year-old. It has only women. At one time, there were 4,000 women traders and so on and so forth. How you look back at legendary women entrepreneurs who through kitchen experiments came up, whether it was looking at, blue indigo dye, or it was maybe environmental activism of body shop products or cosmetic industries, or whether it was introducing Barbie dolls. Today you have Barbie dolls who are also, let us say, one leg missing and yet being winners of Paralympics and so on. So the new millennium is for the women entrepreneurs. But remember, women in work is not going to be easy because we are also caregivers and we live with families. And unpaid caregiving that we give is 21.7%, while men are less than 2%. We put in nearly 6 hours of unpaid caregiving per day, while men may not even put 1 hour. And the world, therefore, has very few women in employment, and that number seems to be going down. And that is something that we need to be worried about. So I would simply stop here and say, please bridge your aspiration. Not just micro hopes or micro ambitions. Don't just micro innovate at a small scale, but please go from low tech to high tech, have huge ambitions, and follow them. This could be in a Nobel laureate's lab, you could be researching, you could be addressing the sustainable development goals, you could be working like Darshana does, or you could be really looking at disaster resilience, you could be maybe designing a spacesuit for women, or cars that will work for women, you could really be looking at how traffic works and designing low-cost, longer-lasting batteries, or more sensor-based apps for mobiles, coding early, but you have to have many skills, and that is important. So please bridge aspirations, and I will take questions as you go on. But remember, whether you are an educator, a scientist, a tinkerer, an innovator, or an entrepreneur, the traits are the same. Attitudes and skills are the same, and it depends on you whether you look at yourself as a young woman in this Gestalt, or you look at yourself as someone rather old. And I always feel I have so much to learn, and what a beautiful time to be young. What a lovely time to be young, to build a world all over again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for such a fabulous and lightning talk, I must say. And it is very evident from the kind of questions that we are getting in the chat boxes as well. And I would say, how beautifully you weave in, what the modern world demands of us and how we can achieve much of it through our everyday actions. And I think we couldn't have summarized our, the day with words better than this. What a beautiful time to be young and, being full of energy and looking for ideas. So once again, thank you very much, ma'am. We are really blessed to have you as one of the mentors for the organization that I and Vijay are co-establishing, and also more so as an advisor who is giving us lots of thought capital and inputs on how we are steering the program Kalpana. So truly grateful to you, ma'am, for your commitment to our cause, and also apologies for the technical hiccups this morning, the link wasn't working and I didn't realize I should have tested it myself first. So apologies for that, but without taking much time, I would request Dr. Bharti Singhal to start taking questions. And I hope you will have a fun time answering a lot of questions that are coming from our young and aspiring girls. So what do you think?
Thank you, Darshana. Thank you, Dr. Jolly. And I would just request both our speakers to switch on their videos if they can while interacting or taking the questions. I will randomly choose the questions that girls have asked in between. So for Dr. Jolly, so ma'am, can self-education be a tool to reboot our world? This is Supriya asking you.
So, there is no other way. Please go to your school, college and all, but remember, self-education is the only way forward. Learning to learn. Other things are facilitations. They're blocks, they're scaffolding, and the best teachers are the ones who just provide the scaffolding. My favorite example is, and I learned it the hard way, I learned that, I worked with a lot of students on projects. And then I started looking at education theory in a more formal way, and I found there was a word to what I've been doing, which is cognitive apprenticeship. And all of us who go into community know that the grad school is nothing but apprenticeship in a research environment. And it's the same as when you go to a master craftsman and you learn what is wheel is my second favorite example, and you learn first to mold clay. Then the master craftsman, the potter who's teaching you, will places hands on your hands and help you to work around the wheel. And then gradually, as you master it, you will let go, and then you will create pieces and which will be a reflection of what you have learned and what you do. So let me simply say, learning to learn we have been using as rhetoric, but it's most important. I still remember those things that I learned on my own, or that I, for the first time, learned when I started teaching. So while schools, colleges, and institutions are important, you must take charge of your own learning. And the best way to do it is if institutions help you in project-based learning or through community engagement and interacting with people, and learn the hard way. And a good teacher will help to model the process of learning. But finally, you are the one who's in charge. We cannot shift the blame of not being able to do anything or anybody. And in today's world, you can design your own learning experience. Because in your entire career, you will not meet everybody who's uniformly helpful to you. There will be one or two, a smaller number of people who will create an experience that will help you to take a leap from, as it's called a quantum leap in learning and in putting the jigsaw together, and then you don't need anybody. And that putting the jigsaw together will be yours, but some mentor may help you. And that could be a mentoring experience, a mentoring person, or just brushing by somebody and, looking, oh, what was that person doing? And then saying, oh my God, you absorb like a sponge. So that's what it could be. So please take charge and design your own learning experiences. In today's world, you can.
Thank you, ma'am, for really elaborating onto that, because today's session is all about how they can develop more skills and how they can learn skills to take opportunities which are present to them and then can build their career forward. Coming to that, and I will like to ask Dr. Monali now. So what are the smart materials and how do they change colors? Amisha is asking. So it's a very technical question she's asking. Okay. Would you like to address?
Yeah, sure. There are different approaches to that. For instance, the one that I work for the food packaging is with the temperature as a trigger. So you can call them as a shape memory polymers. So you already, what happens is the polymer has a glass transition temperature, and above the glass transition temperature, they're soft. And then you can compress them, or you can change the shape of this material and then freeze that shape. So, but when you heat it up above the glass transition, it will come back to its original shape again. So what happens is, to go more deeper, polyester liquid crystals, they have a chirality, they have a helical structure, and depending on the pitch, so the pitch is when the chirality rotates 360 degrees, it is called one pitch, and depending on the pitch, it reflects different colors. For example, if the pitch is short, it will reflect like blue. If the pitch is long, then it will reflect red light. So basically, you play around with the length of the pitch of the cholesterol materials. So with the shape memory polymers, you can compress the material and reduce the pitch. And when you heat it up above the glass transition, the pitch will go back to its original position. And that's how you can tune the color of the materials. That is one way. Other way is like, for example, with the humidity, what happens is the material, you can design it in such a way that it becomes, it is responsive to water or humidity, that when it absorbs to humidity, it can expand its pitch length. So for example, the pitch was like such that it could reflect blue, but then you design the material such a way that it can absorb water. It can, when you introduce the water, what happens is it will absorb and it will expand. So it becomes red in that sense. So there are ways in which like you tune, you have to design the material, whatever the molecular components is in there, in such a way that like it is responding to such kind of responses. And then because of that, the pitch changes and the color changes. In one case, that is one of the examples for the one where the patterns are hidden. So In the normal room temperature condition, it is entirely blue because there is no water, there is no humidity present. Once you introduce the humidity, different parts of the pattern will absorb different amount of water or humidity, and then the pitch changes depending on how you have designed it. So it's all about designing how you have designed the materials to respond to certain trigger, whether it's temperature, pH, or to presence of chemical ions, for example, or humidity. In some cases, it could be light as well as a trigger. Then when you present the light, the molecular conformation changes in such a way that the pitch length changes. So there are also a lot of applications, like for example, in soft robotics. Besides the work that I've shown, smart materials can also have applications right now, like the group that I did my PhD on. They're working on a material which could be used as a coating for the solar panels. So it's such a way that like it will move by itself, that the sand is deposited on the solar panels, because you have to clean the solar panels all the time. They are usually placed in an area which is remote, where sand can deposit over time, and you need to clean them. But if you can design a material such that it will clean by itself, that's something that you can also do. So this kind of materials are also triggered by light. So with the light, it can change its conformation, and it can move by itself, and then it cleans itself. So it really depends on how you have designed the molecules, what kind of functional groups are you using, how do they respond to all these triggers. Yeah, you can. I mean, if you like, I can share more information on that if you find the topic interesting.
That's really good. I think most of girls, I think even I didn't know when I was in India and I was doing my courses, I didn't know about material sciences at that time. And there are actually courses in material sciences that girls or anybody can go for, students can go for. So it's actually interesting. Probably they will explore further in that and may come up for questions for you. And I remember a meme where in India, people have covered the solar panel to protect it from the dust. So I was like, okay, the purpose is not solved now. No solar energy over there. So I just saw it and I was like laughing. Okay, solar panel. And then coming to the next question. So as Monali, when you were presenting, you also mentioned that your idea came and spun up to a startup, I think. So I would like to ask this question to Dr. Pratibha Jolly, as she also touched about startups and entrepreneurship. So there is a student asking, ma'am, where can one get ideas for startups? Does reading book help? And what types of books should we read? This is Dimple, our Kalpana fellow. She's asking to you.
So Dimple, books are good, but experiences are better. And you can begin on a startup rather early. So let me give an example of my own niece's children who just started designing t-shirts early enough. So they were maybe 5 years old or 8 years old. They already had their own startup, obviously aided by their mother who was selling them on internet, but the creation was theirs. And they were painting and selling t-shirts. It's a startup, but I mean, it's a venture. So I'm not getting into the finer detail between the venture and or a business and really what comes to be known as a startup and, graduating from their other things. But what they did learn early enough was that the little money that they did make with the proper publicity, 1/3 went back into their little venture to strengthen it. 1/3 came to them as pocket money, but 1/3 went for philanthropy. So you can learn so much at any age on how you can fit and you may need technology and so on and so forth. So hand-holding you as you get what idea I can have and so on. Today, many organizations, and whether you look at they have programs for women entrepreneur. Or you look at BioRec, which is the biotechnologies. Keep a lookout on these websites. And there's a call for developing a certain type of, maybe it could even be waste to wealth or, to handling the alternative practices and so on. So they're called. And you may get a scholarship, or if you have an idea, then you may be able to, somebody handhold you in incubation centers and all to convert it into this. But you need to have a certain skill set for it. Because entrepreneurship certainly needs that you should have a capacity to take things we don't teach. So digital literacy is most important. Designing a venture is most important. So I'm calling it designing, but you have to have surveys of it. You need to also have financial literacy. And where to raise funds from, and how to create a group, and so on. Like I said, today much can be taken as a service. There are platforms, that are available as a service for doing things. So I'm glad you're thinking of entrepreneurship. You can begin very, very small to your own science thing, but in sciences, many people have done startups. They moved out. For example, 3D printing of liver tissue or cornea tissue. It has happened. We invited Tuhin Bhomik to come and speak at our college as well. He has a startup. There are a lot of startups that have emerged from IITs and Indian Institutes of Science, and so on and so forth. And there are very many youngsters who are now coming up with it. I told you the age profile is, I told you, is under 35 years, but you have to have the capacity for risk taking, because not all startups or ventures are successful. You may not be successful, definitely, but in a very major way. And women have special funding available, and the incubation centers and accelerators that will help you.
That one statement that you made, books are good, but experiences are better. That is definitely a takeaway from this particular message that they have to go for. And I think Darshana wants to add a session, and that is the third week. And we are going to teach them more about how and what are the capabilities, where they can do open when they want to explore these kind of opportunities which are available these days.
Maths are very important. So you should be able to, through project work, we've always done that. And, we have, at least some of us have done that. That is that, students should learn how to create a product out of the project that they do. And in many projects, it's possible when they're hands-on and so on, to create a product that would be a prototype of a commercial. In that, learning a lot is learned. So makers education, enterprise education, and learning skills alongside your other courses that focus on analytical and critical thinking is going to be important, because use of your own hands and solving real world problems that may lead to also, how will you disseminate, or how will you innovation diffuse into society will be necessary skill. So I do see in future and these becoming integrated into your courses. But meanwhile, most important for many of us to find opportunities, and large number of opportunities for learning which are now available.
Thank you, ma'am. And this is really, girls, like whatever ma'am has shared right now, you really need to keep note of that, because you are going to explore these opportunities, everything in the next session that is coming more technical to you. Because right now, ma'am, what is suggesting that is really important for you to become a maker, and a maker it develops your other cognitive skills that you will eventually realize, but it is important to do that. And I have another question. As nurse trainee, what are the other industry opportunities in which I can go and work on myself?
So, is that addressed to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, first, congratulations, because nursing is such, I'm not going to say noble. I'm not going to say that. It's such a frontline caregiving job, and it is highly specialized. And so I think our healthcare systems have to recognize the speciality that is available and how it can be leveraged so that in your own profession you can move to very high leadership roles. Because without this support system, healthcare is going to fall apart, hospitals and all care is going to fall apart. But obviously, you have a choice of, enough. You can, lateral movement is not that easily available in our country, but other places you can add many more qualifications to your own thing, so that you can, today help with clinical, laboratories where technical work is very, very important. So you can retrain, and there's so many other things like, say, radiation, imaging, etc., where we don't have enough trained people. So nurses can also move laterally along these kind of high specialty things. And now that telemedicine is going to come up in a very big way, so upskilling and reskilling will be important. So those of you in nursing profession who are also able to overlay technological skills, so that you understand what is telemedicine, what is, imaging, and maybe some of the usage of new instruments which are technically advanced processes. You can, if I'm sure in due course, this will be available. For instance, now COVID testing, so many different forms of COVID testing has come in, and people have trained on the job. We had a shortage even of PCR machines for carrying out some of these tests, and many of them were in research labs and so on. So this breaking down of boundaries is going to happen in time, because knowledge is now easily accessible. So you can garner credentials online. And probably in open learning, there will be now mechanisms so that hands-on and practicum experience also can be gained, and so on. And I do see that nursing is extremely important, but also see how geographies and geographical borders can be broken. You may find it extremely satisfying to move into areas where healthcare has been rather poor. And there you will be, you will be almost, let us say, the word is used as God sent. And, to establish a sustainable healthcare system. Other thing, a very interesting example, not exactly from nursing, but just anyone. I happen to be reading this book on digitalization by the TCS chief, and he gives a lovely example that there is a need, and finding a solution also gives employment. That in the Northeast, one person would park his car on the highway, and a large number of people would come to him with medical problems. And he would, not being medical field, try to match their medical need, with where that facility would be available. And bring them down to the metro city and the right hospital and do all the networking and all the necessary get the tests done and everything and map their needs onto facilities and get them treated. Imagine what a great service to people who live in villages far out and might have walked 40 kilometers just to come to his car parked on a highway, and then him arranging everything to bring them to the right hospital and think through till they recover from their disease. So this is just a bridge between the sophisticated health providers and those facilities and the common people. And somebody uneducated in healthcare or in medicine doing that, but understanding enough from the symptoms or from the preliminary reports they have, preliminary diagnosis by someone in the local area, and stating that. And how well a nurse would be able to do that. It's a management exercise. It's a networking exercise.
That's wonderful. Now, I think, Preeti, you know many options that you have as a nurse trainee even later on. So there is a question from Manali. Dr. Manali, Divya is asking, how can we deal with situation when we don't stand at our own expectations? How can we develop let go attitude? So this is a general question coming to you. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I myself learned it in a very hard way because I also when I was just 16-year-old, 17-year-old, when I learned that, I think as I said in my slide too, it's all about perception. How you look at it. Do you look at it as is a learning process or not? Yeah. Do you learn it? Just a second. And do you learn it as a learning process or not? Because it's I think generally it's a difficult question, but it's all about the experience and how you look at it. Do you want to take it in a positive way or a negative way? And when people have expectations from you, generally, it tends to burden you. That you have to live up to their expectations. And but you have to know that it is your life, and what you're going to do is only going to affect you. It's not the other people. Basically, it's you who is going to benefit out of it. It's not the other person. So focus on yourself, I would say. And that's why also I learned that if I keep on trying to live according to others' expectation, I cannot be happy. That's what I would say, I guess.
Thank you. Pratibha, do you want to add anything on that?
Nani said it rather well. But let me simply add, at the end of the day, we are creatures living in society, and we have expectations of others have expectations of us, and we have expectations of our own self. Time does teach us, but it's very, very important as we go along to remember that there's certain things on which we cannot compromise. But there's certain other things on which we have to be able to see that, we do create nice social bridges and we do things. But nothing in life is that from which we cannot bounce back. So this bouncing back is very, very important. We all feel bad if we're not able to meet our own expectations or those of others at times. And those could be genuine expectations, but not all expectations of others or of our own self are rooted in reality or something that is doable, So expectations also have the whole spectrum of things. But that is where then you have to sit back and you have to look at what is realistic, what is not, and give yourself time, be kind to yourself as young students. It's too much to expect that a 16 or 17-year-old will know what she wants in life, because she's not had exposure or experiences, and she might find her passion later at some point. And here again, I'm going to give you an example. And this is of a famous person, Ricky Cage, who we invited. He's at NIAS, and we invited him at a sustainability development seminar we did. And he does orchestrated music only on sustainability. And his music was released by Prime Minister at a meeting in France and so on, and he's doing just that. And he's he's a dentist, comes from a family of doctors. So his family wanted him not to pursue music, but just be a doctor, and he became a dentist. And then after he got it, he quit and he pursued his passion. And within music also, it is so, devoted to the cause of sustainability and in biodiversity and environment and all that. So what happens is that, so that fulfilling of expectations or going along with what is expected, sometimes it plays out over several decades. So we need to be kind to ourselves, because I'm not saying that everybody has to sort of choose a path told by others. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, in the real world, the ways in which expectations arise, they're fulfilled or not fulfilled, and just give yourself time and be sincere. And be reflective, think about it, and think what can be shared away and what can be not compromised with, what needs more work, and what will, with more skills and development and more research, more perseverance, you need to manage. So expectations is a very loaded term, and in life it will play itself out in a variety of ways, and looking at stories of others and how they negotiated or handled it will help all of us. Anybody will have a story to tell in this. So we do have a session where all of you are able to talk about whether you met or did not meet your own expectations, and how over a period of time, retrospectively, how you looked at it at one point and how you look at it maybe from a distance after a few months or years. And the story changes completely.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. And just one question I have from YouTube, Darshana, before I say, so while women are trying their best to join STEM, what can men do to make their struggle easier?
Monali, can you please lower your screen a bit? We can only see half of your lecture nose up. So we want to see your full face. And carry on with the question. But just to add to your point, girls are now making a weekly reflection journal to see how they are progressing with the program. So that's the first step in this direction.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. And I think we have many questions that I doubt that we will be able to cover here. So would be fine if I take more further questions and just if you can just reflect upon that.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think it should be okay. Yeah.
Thank you both of you. I will just take this last question that I have from YouTube and one closing question after that, and then we can conclude. So this question, while women are trying their best to join STEM, and what can men do to make their struggle easier? So this question, Pratibha ma'am or Monali?
We both have something to say.
Okay, Dr. Monali, yes.
Yes, for the women to join STEM, I think the work that Vikalpana and other like the Vidyansha and other NGOs are doing for giving exposure to the students, I think that's one very important thing, because it's if I look back at my own journey, it was the exposure that I got during my 12th standard, the exposure that I got through the postgraduate program, the research exposure that I got. Then I think that was really the thing that changed my opinion about research, because until then I wanted to go for civil services, but when I joined POSE and when I started doing research, that changed what I wanted of my career. So it is about exposure that we give to the young students, that if they get the right exposure, they would be interested in STEM, and they would see that this is also something that they could pursue. I would say that.
Okay.
So So I will, wonderful. And so I will take the second part of it, what men can do for it. And, so what we are seeing is that and things are changing. I hope they change faster. Institutions are changing, but not rapidly enough and so on. That is a huge amount of implicit bias. That women cannot do few things or cannot be in some roles and so on and so forth, and those stereotypes are breaking because you see that you now have the women in combat, they're flying Rafale, they're everywhere, and I was going to show you about the first set of women sarpanch who are in politics, obviously, and they are really transforming the world, and they would have a very hard time working in those kind of, let us say, rural parochial atmosphere and trying to bring transformation in highly, let us say, male-dominated systems. Now, across, whether it be in society and so on, so this is something that we hope will change, but has to change rapidly enough, so it needs to be accelerated, and there are a lot of government programs, and myself, I'm working on GATI, which is the Advancement for Transforming Institutions. Now, in this case, men working alongside women is most important because you're not really looking at a world where, either women work separately, men work separately, but all work together and with equal respect and understanding that different people bring different skills and will have different types of talent, and this could be for anything. So my feeling is that there are no quick fix solutions. We will have to begin early enough if we have project-based learning early enough, and we have large teams working on them. I mean, large could be even 3 or 4, or even if it's 2, and it doesn't have to be all women team. And if one person is good at theory and mathematics, maybe that's a woman, and there's another woman who's also very good with working with hands and working in the maker's lab and actually being able to do something. And there is also a boy student who is good with another aspect of their project. They all work together, bringing complementary skills, and they will see that everybody's skills is very, very important. But this is long-term solutions, and these things we need to respect in research and laboratory settings. It won't always be done. We know what happened to Rosalind, and when the DNA discoveries, etc., were being made, and so these discriminations are there. We learn our lessons from them. We have to hope for a better world and create a better world. So I do hope that the new generation men understand that having a woman who's also working helps improve both their lives. It helps improve the family life as well. I mean, economically, it helps they share responsibility to take better care of those they're caregivers for, because not one person can do that. And it also impacts the research because both bring, as in any team, whether it be all male, all female, or it be both men and women working together. In any teamwork, you bring more skills. But the capacity to be able to respect and honor in those teams is important, and therefore men need to be sensitized. They need to be taught early enough. And I think women and mothers and sisters and families have a role to play there. So this is not something that's going to happen in isolation. So we need to create more and more such experiences where people come together to work together. They're not accusative that, this is not happening or that's not happening, but in working together, they create those relationships and synergy that makes them respect each other and the value of each other's work. And I think that is going to happen. And it's already happening where you have huge projects and huge things where everybody's skills are needed. And, to work in an institution, complementary skills is one way in which somebody becomes indispensable. And that indispensability will work to be a woman. And she will be respected.
Indeed, ma'am. So there is a general question, though Yogshika has asked this question, but I think it is with most of our Kalpana fellows. So I think as most of our girls are facing the financial challenges and coming from different backgrounds, and so they are concerned about the financial resources to support their learning. So they're saying, particularly in terms of how they can finance their own dreams. So in that matter, Because if the family or as a seasoned academic teacher leader, we would like to hear from you like some advice from these young girls, for these young girls basically.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are many scholarships around. You have to look for it. Like, for instance, in India right now, if you see, there is a DST Inspire Fellowship, and there are also many other fellowships. And for instance, during my college too, I had got scholarships through the college. During my master's also, I had got scholarships. Then, so there are many source of funding that is there. You just have to look for it, I would say. Like there is also, I think, forgot the name, but there are also many scholarships from the research institutes as well. So yeah, and of course there is always the option of study loan. That's, I do not know how easy it is to get that, but I know people who have taken study loans and financed their own studies. And that's also a very common way of financing yourself when people go for doing masters in US or people doing masters in Netherlands who come after their bachelor's. So they could really get study loans from the bank, which they can repay it over certain years. But that's a possibility, and many people do it.
Okay. So I think that's wonderfully said, Monali. I do hope that I would be very much interested also in knowing we are able to on one portal bring all the scholarship opportunities, because in every lack, the information is diffused. And for myself at my college, I found 70-80% students who are coming from outside of Delhi, from remote areas. They were first generation learners, and they had these huge aspirations, and they met our merit criteria, but we had to bring in bursaries and financial assistance. So let me say, despite all scholarships and efforts of the college, there was never enough. So there was financial stress and so on. And so there have to be ways and ways in which government and people can address it. I do like the idea of a loan and so on, but also 2-3 other things we need to look at. One is that sometimes, if you look at successful people, not all have studied at Ivy League universities or expensive schools, So if you were just to even look at all these women who are leaders in DAE or ISRO or DRDO and so on and so forth, and many of us, all of us may have very humble financial backgrounds when we came up and so on. And when you studied in low-cost institutions, for example, University of Delhi is really low cost, where you pay less than 10,000 for many courses in a year, so which is less than 1,000 rupees in a year, and so on. But for many students, even that is a challenge and all. So we have to have more institutions that are able to provide state-funded value for money education and so on. And but I found increasingly, of course, loan you talked about and so on, increasingly students taking charge of their own finances. So I have met with students who are also raising enough money for their daily needs and so on, or meeting other needs and so on, to tuitions or for some work that they were able to do. So I do think that we need to, as a country, have more opportunities for students to earn while they learn. And these programs have not really taken off in a very big way. While outside, it is quite likely that you may belong to a very well-off family, but you may still be expected to do something for maybe £10 or $10 an hour. And you can do that and find those opportunities, but they have to be safe, and they have to, some of these also add to your own skill set. Because, as I said, when you teach someone or you are mentored to someone else, you also learn in that process and so on. So I think we need to have more earn while we learn, and we cannot trivialize the matter. Number of scholarships rising, but it's not rising fast enough. And there have to be summer programs which give internship, apprenticeship, but paid while you are doing those things, which is not always happening. So the question is very well placed, and enough opportunities, but certainly cannot trivialize, not enough for the large number of aspirational population that is coming into education. So don't quit if you don't get the college or institution of your dreams because it was too expensive. There may be another place where at a lower cost you can achieve the same. And if you work hard enough, at a later point, springboards are always there. You might find yourself in your dream place, your dream institution through your hard work. So hard work will sometimes compensate for where you did not have money to reach, and so on.
Definitely, ma'am. I think I can put myself as an example to that. So no funding, no resources or anything that I had, but the PhD was fully funded, definitely. But at least before that, it was just simultaneous jobs to do and to earn. But everything has to come with some credibility at the end, and it should add on to your skill set as well. The jobs that you are taking probably can help you out when you are taking that to help you in terms of money.
So for higher education, I know now many students who are taking time off for 1 or 2 years to work and earn enough so that they can come back to education. But sometimes for money, sometimes also for experience. This is a non-linearity I'm talking about. So even for MBA, you may have many executive MBA programs which are really, really catching on now. And by the time you finish your basic, say, bachelor, masters, and then you decide to go out into the workspace and garner experience from actually working in the field, in industry, corporate, or labs, or wherever, and then you find what your passion is. And enhanced skills are there, the world by that time, because everything is situated. Learning is very, very important. And then with that, you have also money, you have the thing, and you have exposure, and you can find out better places. But when you bridge that process and you say, I'm just working pretty hard and I'm finishing my master's, and then I have this entrance test and I have 10 entrance tests and I had no time to reflect, no time to think, and it just jumped onto the bandwagon, and now I want a PhD because I can't even afford to take 6 months off, and in some cases a real problem because your parents might think that maybe you're not interested and you want to get married and not study. You have to negotiate so much, and women have to negotiate more factors than others. But I think give yourself breathing time and reflection time, and create the resources. And if you're passionate enough, even after that 1 year, then you're going to be successful.
I think that's a very good advice, ma'am. That covers a lot of other questions that people have just asked us in the chats. And Bharti's example, the girls have heard it so comprehensively. She was doing freelance writing, she was doing teaching, and while pursuing her full-time master's at Jamia, and alongside she was doing tuition as well. So I think if people want to imagine, something which is outside their so-called societal bounds, they have to really work as hard as they can, and there is no substitute to hard work. And I think while there can be hard work can be alternate to many other things, but there is hardly anything that substitutes hard work. So that's completely non-negotiable, and I hope our girls are sort of taking this lesson from this session. And
I'd like to add, Darshana, in Indian culture, we many times think that money is a dirty word, that we should do something unpaid. I don't see why, you could be rooming together in the hostel and so on, and somebody else can afford it, doesn't have time, but you're just cooking the dinner. You better be, sort of compensated for some of those very simple things as well, and so on. And so there are ways and ways in which we can do it. So I think financial literacy and financial accountability and financial, what should I call it, as flexibility is important. So find ways, because nothing is more pleasurable than earning your way. And so on. We heard those umpteen examples of who used to drop newspapers in people's home, on a bike, and then rose to be whoever. And these are the examples we grew up with. But today, those opportunities are very many, and you can do it online. But be careful and be responsible. So don't just jump into it. Be very careful, be very, very discerning in how you do a side job.
Yeah. And they can always come to us and ask, if this looks legit or not. Like, that's the kind of community we are trying to create now. If somebody needs an opinion on something, all of us, like I'm counting you in as well, all of us are here to advise, if something looks reasonable or not. And ma'am, there's so much we have to learn from you. I think at some point we are going to ask you for another financial literacy session, because that's just so amazing. And I think it comes from years of experience that you have, built an institution in form of one of the most amazing institutions for women in the country, and now the top college for the last 4 years. So I think there's so much that we can pick up from the tiny pearls of wisdom that keep dropping. So we will definitely, are going to grab all the opportunities that we can of learning from you, not only just the Kalpana girls, but also me and Bharti, Monali, and all of us personally have so much to pick up from their own experiences. So, what you just said about the financial literacy and how unpaid work is so accepted in India, I just came across a very beautiful example yesterday. Vijay's cousin, she's these days doing these beautiful crochet scarves and everything, and she's selling them on Instagram. And I was like, wow. And I asked her how much profit margin you are selling. So she says, I have about 100% profit margin. Like if my cost is about 100 rupees, I'm selling it sometimes for 200 or 300 rupees, including my own personal time. And she's just doing it alongside her own undergraduate studies. So people have become so creative these days, and you can just particularly with the digital revolution that we have in our hand right now, there are so many avenues that have opened. Anybody's hobby can be, an earning milestone for them at this particular stage. So I think I'm sure the girls will flex their muscles and start thinking of ways how they can start collecting even small penny towards financing their dreams and how they could achieve those.
What you said is also links up another dot. All of us have other passions and interests and skills. So here she enjoys doing crochet. She's creative in that. And she cannot hold all the crochet she does. Yeah. And so she can do that. She can custom design a lace or a piece for somebody and so on. So it's important to keep up your art and craft and those skills. They will sharpen your algorithmic thinking. They will sharpen your other things and develop a business sense for that as well. It's always easy to give advice. It's always more difficult to do things. But let me say that today, if you will just look at the number of Facebook pages you are invited to like and the marketplace it is becoming of ideas and products, it is incredible.
Yeah, that's so true, ma'am. And ma'am, I think, this is probably the last question from today from our fellows, because I realize Bharti is going to be close to 2 a.m. So we have a question for you that goes, it is from one of the fellows who is a chemistry major and is now presently working as Gandhi Fellow. So she's saying so much has changed in the last 1 year in terms of digital penetration and the skill sets that people have upskilled themselves. So Professor Jolly, can you please share what could be the possible opportunities where people can blend sciences and social sciences, and the kind of career opportunities that will be coming in those dimensions?
I think that is most critical. At first, I must say that I really like the idea that you are on Gandhi Fellowship. Gandhi Fellowship and the Young Leader Fellowship and all these programs which you publish. These are really wonderful ways in which you are able to reach out to communities. And today, more than anything else, community engagement and learning in that context is important, addressing real world problems. And I do think that as a science graduate, if you are doing this, then you should address those problems that also need the scientific background. You could certainly go for training people for adult literacy and all, but why not digital literacy then? Because somebody else can go and teach the 3 hours and so on. But we do know that today the idea, I think last time I said or made in the forum, that the idea of basic literacy has changed. because it is certainly digital literacy has to be added in, because look at the way uneducated people are able to use the mobile phone. Farmers are using it, women are using it to keep in touch with their family, for migrant families or so on. Later they might need it for even ordering their ration, the way we order things and so on, or for selling their products. So if you are able to, I mean, this is one example. I mean, this is what came out to me off the cuff. And so you are absolutely best to lead these kind of handholding. When we go and we, sort of help others to become savvy with technology. So I think the next big not-for-profit movements have to be to have diffusion of the disruptive technologies into the remotest areas, because the mobile phone is so versatile, the smartphone is so versatile that it can overcome the digital divide. But how to use it is really very important, and so that needs to be done. So let me say this division between the sciences and social sciences, humanities is very, very artificial. Scientists also write poems and they're fond of literature, they in arts, and they're skilled craftsmen as well, and so on. But somewhere along the line, they begin to drop those areas of interest, passion, hobbies and all, and science becomes all consuming. There's no time left for that. So this, when we talk of work-life balance, really also has to be skills being balanced. So that, I know I used to do so many things and I've been wondering whether the fitness of my language or the fitness of my hands to keep up with my painting or to do creative writing, is it there? I've been doubting myself, and so on. So that has to be there, because without that, how will you be perceptive? How will you be creative? And science is a philosophy that has to be lived in a different language or a different paradigm in the laboratory. But at the end of the day, it's quest for the unknown. And that is a human being's quest in all areas. And you have to break down those boundaries and so on. So social sciences will now need immersive learning. The best examples of how technology is being used from teaching of history, learning of history, drama, geography, and whatnot. Because you are creating a world where you can have this kind of augmented reality and learning immersively and things like that. So science also, when it builds, let's just take one example. If you are going to develop artificial intelligence, are you going to have your product mimic the worst of human behavior? Or would that be responsible best of human behavior? And from where will that debate and discourse find its answers? It will find those answers rooted in our art, culture, social sciences, humanities, everyday life, interaction with people. Give it whatever name you want to give it as a discipline. So learning in future will be with depth, deep learning, into discipline. It will be with width. So, it might be called T-shaped or whatever. The width will be lateral, cross-cutting across disciplines. And unfortunately, in my generation, after grade 8, when I chose science from grade 9 to 11, we had that 3-year program, I had to quit learning of the language, even Hindi, because English remained. I had to quit my art. I had to quit my interest in literature, history and all. So I was left on my own to keep up those interests by finding a book off the library shelf or doing things and so on. And deep interest turning into deep expertise requires a different world. We will need deep expertise and not just superficial interest. So fluency will require the cross-cutting understanding of this. So we need to respect that different people will have different interests and different, let us say, concentration and focus of different types of knowledge and skills. but you need to understand, at least if you want to develop a product and your startup and you want to have an AI, if you yourself will not do that, you cannot. But you need to have a team member who is an expert. So in working with team, complementary skills, we need to have a common language, at least to be able to place our problem on board and then be able to appreciate a solution that's coming through. So Gandhi Fellowship, etc., will also give to you problems which are rooted in a reality and a value to people. And as you learn, don't then completely select a binary. Now that I'm there, I'm going to forget the science. You have to have a superposition of many things.
That's very beautifully summarized, ma'am. Like, I think there are no boundaries anymore in today's world, particularly when the new education policy is also coming. So a lot of it is going to be reshaped. So thank you, ma'am, for sharing, those valuable inputs on the questions that our girls have asked. Before we conclude, I would just like to ask you guys for any, closing remarks. So maybe we'll begin with Manali and then ma'am, and then we will just close the session. Okay, Manali, over to you. Any closing remarks you want to tell these young girls who are in finishing 12th or are in some stages here of VCs and BTECs?
Yeah. First, I would like to just add on the scholarships part that even when you're working, also you can still continue to study. Even if the study that you want to do, if the training that you want to do, it's going to help you grow. The companies, they also invest in you, so they can always sponsor your studies while you are working. So don't worry about that part. That will happen eventually. And as a closing remark, I just want to say that for me, it was, I'm going to say that please don't compete with others. Please compete with yourself. Try to better yourself and always keep challenging yourself to learn something new, because in today's world, that's very important. Keep learning something new and adapt. So that's what I would want to say.
Fabulous, Manali. Thank you very much for that concluding remark, and that sort of sums up all the workshop and the panel discussion that we've had today. Ma'am, over to you for a short bite.
Manali has said it so beautifully. Not always necessary for me to add something. Both her points are so pertinent. So thank you, Manali. I echo completely what you had said. And that is, I will simply say on that, you, as you said so beautifully, we are not here to compete. But at the same time, we are not here to just live off laurels of others. We have to be an equal participant, and we have to understand that there are no shortcuts. So to be able to stand on firm ground, I always say, have your head in the clouds but feet on the earth. And very, very important that do that and retain the spirit of adventure and to be an equal partner in all this search and to grow. Remember that you have to contribute to both your own growth and that of whenever you will be working and work, because you will experience both collaboration and competition. So I always talk about, this has got longer than that one word and I was going to stop, but you have to have many binaries that you will have to combine. You think slow, you think fast. You work alone, you work in a group. And you have to be able to capture these dualities and the range of things and experience everything. To grow further. Be open to
Thank you, ma'am.
My last word would be open to learning.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And on that note, I would like to close this session before Darshana says thanks to all to this lovely quote, which I truly like. It resonates with every single girl. So the path is from Kalpana Chawla. The path from dreams to success does exist. May you have the vision to find it, the courage to get onto it, and the perseverance to follow it. I think that concludes our session in my way. And Darshana, over to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Bharti, for that lovely quote. This is one of my favorite quotes as well, and she's absolutely one of the women seeing whom on TV inspired me a lot as a young child. So today, I would just hello. Yeah. So, ma'am, thank you very much, Pratibha ma'am, for your time, input, and like all the encouragement that you've given us today. We are, as an organization, we're extremely blessed to have you on our advisory board, and also like giving us the vision in this program to build this further. So thank you very much for joining us in this inaugural batch, Kalpana. And thanks to you, Monali. Like really proud of your journey, and it's just so nice to sort of go back and collaborate with people once you shared academic promises with, and two of our fellows, Monali and I, were contemporaries in JNC. She was a year junior to me, and it's been a delight to see how your journey has unfolded. All I want to say to my all girls is that this is a community that we are building, and we are going to uplift each other together. Like whether it's me and Bharti moving on, or whether it's Monali or Pratibha ma'am, doing newer things together, or it is you who are just venturing into the world of your career. So shoot your question. This is your safe space, and ask anything that you want to ask us. And thanks a lot again to both our speakers, and also Bharti for putting so much effort into this whole program, Kalpana for sharing it. We are very proud of you for the leadership and vision that you're bringing into Kalpana. And I'm really, really excited to be working with you. And I hope the second week of Kalpana, as we have started today,